Got asked a good football question. This goes back to 2009, 2010 of the runner-up teams. And sometimes I get asked, a question of if the runner-up teams, who were the better? And I like these kind of questions. So I got the pick between Arizona, who lost that close game 27-23 to Pittsburgh. Some people think the Steelers cheated that Super Bowl. That's still debatable. There was some suspect calls. Crazy game because that's when Harris with that, remember that 103-yard interception return? That was crazy. That was crazy. That run back was crazy. Uh that game had, and of course at that time, Roethlisberger came up big in that game. Um he won at the end. It was a big game. It was a big turning point. I think it's Antonio Holmes, who I was calling him like a link between Robert Ory and James Posey, a guy that finishes up in the postseason because he had that touch. So it was a crazy ending to that game. But anyway, um, which who did I think that when I'm talking about the Colts, they lost 31-17 to New Orleans. And I'll never forget that game because it started the second half, that offside kick, which is one of the best offside kicks I've seen in a Super Bowl. That one and that one with the Steelers and the Cowboys. The Saints needed something to turn their fortunes around, and it was huge for them. It was very, very, very huge. It was like a turning point. That's how they were able to pull that game off. So um, that was a very turning point. Drew Brees played pretty good in the game. Peyton Manning. Now I'm gonna do the statistical standpoint for you, statistical wise. Um, Kurt Warner had 377 in his loss. Peyton Manning had 333. Both were plagued by turnovers, because I mentioned that 103-yard return. Peyton Manning threw that interception to Tracy Porter, ran back for 74 yards. That was the game sealer right there. So they each had a big turnover, which changed the fortunes of the game. Which team do I think was the better of those two runner-ups? I gotta say Arizona. I think Peyton Manning's quarterbacking was still good, but Joseph Adai did pretty good on the ground. But I didn't think they necessarily did a lot in the air, considering how dominant Peyton Manning was as a quarterback. Larry Fitzgerald showed out in that Super Bowl, and it would have been interesting had Arizona won that Super Bowl. Who would have gotten the MVP? Would have been Kurt Warner, would have been Larry Fitzgerald, because they showed out. They showed out. They showed out in that Super Bowl. It was a great game in the sense that it was